All right. It's Sunday, September 24th. I had a horrible weekend. A horrible, like beginning to end, horrible weekend. And we're going to talk about this football game, which was upsetting. But look, we're in this together. Virginia Tech lost to Marshall 24-17. And before we get started, I guess I'll just let you know how my weekend went. So I go on a run Saturday morning. I always run before the Hokies play. It's part of my tradition. Call Pat. Hey, fired up for the game. Hope everything's well. Go on my run. And as most of you know, I did move to Midtown Atlanta. And I finished my run, and I'm running by my truck, which is parked a couple of blocks away. And I'm like, oh, I left my back right window open. That's horrible. Someone probably got into my car, but I'll get my keys and go close it. Nope. Window smashed. Stuff's everywhere, on the ground, all over the place. There's glass all over the place. Police reports left on my thing. So that sucks. Go to watch the game. Game happens. And then my car got broken into this morning again. So twice in a row. Will not be parking in Midtown anymore, but will continue to watch the Hokies. But that's my weekend. Pat, how are you, man? Did you have a better weekend than that?
I was going to say, Billy Ray, it sounds like you need to control the controllables, and you don't have to watch the Hokies.
We have had a slew of Hokie haiku submissions this week, so thank you to everybody. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So Pat and I are doing some splitting up the responsibilities here, Pat, but why don't you kick us off with some poetry before we get into this football game?
Thank you all for these submissions. The first double H hails from Roanoke, Virginia. Grady Baker, Gianni on the spot. Too many issues. Longer rebuild than we hoped. Shades of early Frank. And then we go to Pete McGee. Pete, I feel like I know where you live, but I'm not confident enough to go ahead and guess. So I'm sorry. Offense ran and hid, losing enthusiasm fast. That's 8 syllables. Big plays, strike again. Bijan Peters, hailing from Arlington.
It's so funny that we get more poetry when we lose. It is kind of funny. I feel like when we lose, the last thing you want to do is write a poem, but we get so much more poems in the weeks that we lose.
A lot of engagement on our post loss tweets prior to the post loss pod. Bijan says 7 years ago, Pat was crowned homecoming king. I miss winning games. It was a beautiful September afternoon. We throttled East Carolina. Throttled.
That was awesome. Cam Phillips had 280 yards receiving. He had 16
No, that
catches.
was the other UCU game.
Oh, sorry. I've got my beating group of 5 teams in the past mixed up.
If only. That was the Greg Stroman punt return and Gerard Evans psycho touchdown.
That's right.
Tom Wormy on the call. Gerard Evans.
Riley Wyatt.
Where's she from?
Richmond, Virginia. NBC 29. This is very bad. Did not think it could get worse. What do we do now? We're about to discuss that. And then big Virginia Tech guy. That could come from me. That could come from you. That could probably come from a lot of our listeners. But he reserved that spot. Big Virginia Tech guy. Hope is fading fast. The Hokies lose to Marshall. Bring on women's hoops. I'm so glad you brought that up. When we were walking out of Marshall after the Rutgers game, I told everybody that was listening, we will be back. We are coming back here in a few months, and our women's basketball team is going to run circles around you guys. So, yes, can confirm, fired up for women's basketball season. Pat, we did secure our tickets to watch the Queens of Castle take on Caitlin Clark. A spectacle in the Queen City. Looking forward to that. We got to stop delaying the inevitable. We do have to talk about this football game, and we're going to do that right now. So where did we watch? I want to shout out Allison Elkins and everybody from the Atlanta Hokies who did such an incredible job. We had a short timeline. I heard from David Wilson, and he goes, "Hey, I want to watch the game with some Hokies. How do we do that?" I said, "Okay, let me call Allison." So Allison sets it up. We go to the Poorhouse. I think it's called the Poorhouse in West Midtown over by the Interlock. So after I went to go get my car taped up, headed down there, and we had a great turnout. They said it was the biggest turnout they've had in years. Really, really cool spot. They give you a little wristband. You scan it. You can go up and self-serve yourself wine. You can serve yourself craft beer, regular beer, mixed drinks, whatever you want. A lot of TVs. And then David Wilson. I got a bunch of David Wilson stories, but I'll save some of them for later and do some now. So he says, "Hey, my friend's pulling up." I said, "Oh, that's cool. Who is it?" He goes, "My friend Ruben." So in my head, I'm already thinking like, okay, this is probably Ruben Randall. They were drafted together. He played at LSU, played in the NFL for a while, played for the Giants. He goes, "Yeah, he played at such and such high school. His name's Ruben." I said, "Do you mean the guy that also played at LSU and also played for the Giants?" He goes, Yeah, that's him." I was like, why would you lead with where he went to high school? "Hi, I'm Billy Ray Mitchell. I went to Kettler Elementary School." That would be like me introducing myself that way. But Ruben Randall, great guy, and a great turnout. I loved it. David Wilson did a backflip. No, really, I had a great time with friends. Actually, Pat, can you pull this up? Can you pull up the text that we got from Courtney Adams about what college sports are about? And it's a shame, but this is kind of where we are right now. Courtney Adams, a good friend of the podcast, she sent in this tweet, which I think encapsulates
Formerly
where we are.
Formerly Courtney Adams.
That's
Courtney
right.
Adams Yetzi.
That's right. CAI.
Hailing from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I think a lot of people think the point of sports is that your team will win and then you will be happy. That is not the point of sports. The point of sports is to be sad in a group.
Nothing brings you together like tough times, and tough times are what we are in. Pat, what'd you do for the game, buddy?
My good friends Joshua Little, aka Jay Lit, and
Litsky
and Sheltone Moss came over. We watched it on my couch. Great time watching on the couch. Hadn't watched a Tech game on the couch in a long time. And followed by some Selwyn Pub pizza. Watched the rest of the games there. But, apologies to Shelton and Jay Lit. I was getting angry, getting fired up. Using some profane language at times. So it was like that yesterday.
Let's dive into Sons of Stats, making its illustrious return for the second time in 2023. Pat, what do you got for me?
So his name was not Naheem Aline. His name was Rasheen Ali of Marshall. And he ran for 174 yards and 2 touchdown scores. I believe he had a long of 56 for a touchdown. Virginia Tech, here's a statistic for you. Virginia Tech has the number 2 ranked pass defense in the United States of America. They also have the 125th ranked rush defense in America. They give up 218 rushing yards per game. And we haven't played any. Hudson Card is a good quarterback. But, the quarterbacks of Old Dominion, Rutgers, and Marshall are all, engineering on run-first offenses to begin with.
I completely agree. I think you got to take it's something to hang your hat on. But
it isn't. It's
right.
a total joke. It's a total joke. We are kidding. This is not the Spins of Saturday.
We are getting absolutely gashed on the run game, and teams are not, they don't need to pass the ball. So ergo, they don't pass for that many yards. I will say, if you take away, this was from Mike McDaniel, if you take away Ali's long run, it was 26 carries for 113 yards and 1 touchdown. I get you can't take it away, but I think Feldarius Payne made a little bit of a difference. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. I saved my stats for a new segment coming up later, so I'll let you give the rest of your stats.
Andy Bitter says the Hokies average 6.1 yards per carry at Marshall on just 30 carries. In the 35 times since 1987, Virginia Tech has averaged at least 6 yards per carry in a game. That number of 30 carries is the third fewest carries it has had. Oh, so you're telling me that a historically awful rushing offense from Virginia Tech that had 11 rushing yards against Purdue is averaging 6.1 yards per carry, and most of that came in the first half, and we did not continue to run the ball, and we did not have more than 30 carries? More stats. Kyron Drones, 19 of 35 for 160 and ran for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Can I give some props? This dude has been it's his second time starting in college football. He is, snap to guy in other uniform in your face trying to kill you is like 1.2 seconds. And I have to say, I've been impressed by his ability to kind of, I don't want to take a word from Seth Greenberg, but I will, because he was really nice to the basketball team. He's done a really good job making chicken salad out of chicken shit a couple of times. Like the hand that he is dealt pre-snap and as soon as the ball is snapped is usually terrible. And he's able to figure something out. So I do believe a tip of the cap is in order for Kyron Drones.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about it. The turnover battle statistics. We won the turnover battle and lost the game. I was surprised, actually, because I thought we had either lost the turnover battle or it was even. Then you go back and you're like, wait a second, we actually won the turnover battle.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly Lawson had the pick early, and then Keontae Jenkins had the interception as well. Okay, let's talk about the good. How are the Sons of Saturday going to spin this loss into a positive? Billy Ray, kick us off.
I love that you're leaning into the bit, Pat. I love that you're leaning into the bit, because there are a lot of people listening right now saying, "Here comes all the spins." But here are a couple of things that I did like. Great start. I sit down in my chair and I'm watching the game and I say, "Whoa, who is this? Who is this football team running it down Marshall's throats? Who is this?" First drive, 6 plays, 75 yards and a touchdown. 3 runs in that drive. We had 64 yards. Let's go. Looked awesome. And then we completely went away from the run. And then the last 4 Marshall drives, not including their kneel down, the defense held them to a turnover. We had an interception, 3 and out, and a punt. Virginia Tech was only able to score once in that grouping right there. But
they were playing pretty conservative.
They were playing pretty conservative, but Coach Pry talks about this in his post-game press conference. Like, we're not the type of team that can come back from multiple scores down. We said that with Mike Holmes last week. It's just not the type of offense that we are. And it was extremely encouraging for Virginia Tech to jump out and score, yes, their first ever first quarter touchdown this season. It's the second time this year that we have scored in the first quarter. The only other time that we scored in the first quarter was when the Old Dominion long snappers snapped the ball 90 feet over the punter's head. That's what I have for the good. Patrick.
I have individual performances that we'd be remiss if we didn't compliment the play of Bashal Tootin yesterday.
Again.
Now, here's the problem, though. He had 9 carries. 9 carries, 88 yards. Okay, 9 carries, 88 yards. I look at that and I say, wait a second. That's almost 10 yards per carry. Long of 49. And guess what? Bashal Tootin, 5 catches, 45 yards. What were we saying on the preview? We need to involve Bashal Tootin in the passing game. And we did. And guess what? He was effective because Bashal Tutin is the best player on our offense, without a doubt. And for him to only get 14 touches yesterday, feed my man, Bashal Tutin. He's a dangerous man with the ball in his hands.
I gotta say, I think Bashal Tutin would be an impact player at, I think, every ACC school. I think he is a really, really solid, smart football player, and I hate to see that he's not. I'm not going to say that it reminds me 100% of Khalil Herbert, but he reminds me of Khalil Herbert in the fact that I think that he could play or start at so many other schools and be effective. Unfortunately, what he is not benefiting from that Khalil Herbert benefited from is there were 3 or 4 offensive linemen that played or got a shot in the NFL in the offensive line when Khalil Herbert was here. Bashal Tutin is having to make 2 or 3 people miss in the backfield to get 3 or 4 yards. So yeah, it's been a shame thus far.
The Gosnell brothers have got hands. Benji, 4 receptions, 52 yards. Steven Gosnell made the best catch of the day. I think it was his first catch of the day. Going out and laying out and getting it. 3 receptions for 31 yards. More on Kyron Drones. The guy just gives us an opportunity to be less than one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Which clearly we had no opportunity to run the football. It's completely absent with Grant Wells. And we ran for 184 yards yesterday.
Yeah.
Which is the most we ran for all year. Again, we ran for 11 rushing yards against Purdue. Mm-hmm. And Drones had 75 of those yards yesterday.
Kind of expanding on his ability to make plays when there really isn't anything there. On the 4th and 3, the last drive to extend it, he had that dump off to Tutin, which was a great play. Again, pressure in his face immediately, was able to find Tutin and get that first down. And then the opening touchdown, really nice play. Hit the middle of hit the hole right in the middle, was able to bounce outside, great vision, get into the end zone, break a tackle, and stay in bounds. So, that was nice. That was nice. That was tight.
Feldarius Payne had the best game of his Virginia Tech career on Saturday. Looked fantastic. He had 1.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Just an impact player. We've been having struggles in the interior defensive line this year. We have experience there, but they have not necessarily been impact players at all. And Feldarius Payne, number 0, got it done. And then generally, not necessarily what you want on a good takeaway, but there are young guys that are getting experience. And these are young guys with talent because, there's certainly a talent gap in some areas on the field. But some of these young guys who are redshirt freshmen or true freshmen getting out there and making an impact. Mose Phillips had 5 tackles on Saturday. Caleb Woodson, will be well on his way to being a veteran of this team next year when he is a true sophomore. George Balance, who, frankly, I don't know that much about. He played football yesterday, and I know he's a true freshman. Dante Lovett getting a lot of reps. Keyshawn Burgos, obviously, on the edge as well. But I mean, if we're pulling positives here, getting young guys experience is important, especially when it is young, talented guys. Now, bad. There's a lot of bad.
We tried to give you some stuff to get fired up about. Sons of Smiles. But we'll flip the page. I mean, I know there's one critique of Kyron Drones, and I don't even think it's really necessarily his fault. Goodwill Hunting style, it's not your fault. But what do you have on Drones?
Yeah, I already said, we got away from running the ball, which was so effective in the first half. But why are we dropping back Drones as if he's just a pocket passer? He ran for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. We know that that's when he's able to get out of the pocket. That's when he is most dangerous. The entirety of the second half, he was dropping back, and he would have one read, and if he didn't have the read, he would have to scramble out and just toss it out of bounds, which, it seems like happened a half dozen times yesterday. Now, with Pop Watson being out, if Pop Watson is our true, third string guy, but yesterday with Grant Wells being out, Pop Watson de facto is your backup. But since you don't have Pop Watson, is that why we're not rolling Drones out to the right or rolling him out to the left? Because we want to keep him healthy and keep him in the game because we don't have much behind Drones. I don't understand, but that might be the only theory in regards to why we are not, running him to his strengths. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hope that's not the situation, because it's not just a quarterback problem. It's pretty much the entire roster. We're so thin everywhere. It's not, we're thin at quarterback. We're thin at offensive line. We're basically thin across the board. And, if Kyron Drones being a factor in the run game gives us the best opportunity to win the football game, you kind of just gotta roll with it. So I didn't really understand that. Talking about some of, the other things to talk through is just the defense continuing to lack gap integrity. I know we talked about them a lot last game. They've been talked a lot about on the internet, but the linebacking core really, really confuses me. I don't really know what their keys are. It looks very much like they're reacting in real time. The one play that really jumped off the screen to me was the Rasheen Ali touchdown. Both linebackers ended up filling the same gap outside the tackle to meet the puller, and also following the motion. Marshall did a great job with window dressing and motion and kind of affecting our alignment. That was one of the plays that did it. Ali hit his spot and it's off to the races. And we knew he was a home run hitter. We knew that we were going to have to be really, really gap sound. And we just were not. We have multiple guys coaching the linebacker position, and it just, as far as, knowing what you're doing and knowing where your keys are and knowing where to be, I think that's an area that we really struggle in. Another thing that I saw was we just got big dogged. You look at Marshall and you look at their 3 touchdown drives. You got 9 plays for 78 yards, touchdown, 6 plays for 75 yards, touchdown. And then the backbreaker, the absolute crusher, 7 plays for 98 yards, touchdown. Just walking you down the field over and over and over again. Penalties and discipline. This is a problem that I thought we did a pretty good job mitigating through the first 3 games. Last year was a penalty fest. It seemed like we were one of the most penalized teams in the country. That reared its ugly head again this week. 9 penalties for 70 yards. I believe 5 or 6 of those penalties came before the ball was even snapped. You're looking at pre-snap penalties. We've gone back and forth on this call. The Dorian Strong pass interference on 3rd and 6 on the Marshall 6, which sparked the 98-yard touchdown drive in the second half. Personally, I think it's pass interference. You do not. But the one that's not up for discussion at all is you had Bob Schick jump off sides on 4th and 1 on the last drive. You make it 4th and 6.
Out of a timeout.
And what they did, Marshall, who they kind of took a play out of the Bud Foster Coach Wiles book where, you line up, everything's quiet, and then you immediately shift and you basically get one of the offensive linemen on Virginia Tech to jump off sides. And that's what happens. It's just the thing. I was going to talk about this later. It just seems like there are plays that are made on defense for stretches, but then the offense can't move the football. Then the offense moves the football and the defense gets completely gashed. Or, special teams will look like it's not know what it's doing. We're incapable of playing sound football on all phases during the same time. And I'm not really sure what to chalk that up to. And 3rd down, which has been a absolute disaster for Virginia Tech all season. 2 for 13 on 3rd down. And I want to point out a graphic that OxVT put out He basically put out every offensive statistic that you would want to look at and where Virginia Tech is ranked. And the three that I think are the most jarring here are we're 30.3% on third down, which is 126th in the country. We have a 43.75 red zone touchdown percentage. So how often are you getting into the red zone and scoring touchdowns? Less than half of the time, and ranked 122nd in the country. And we talked about it earlier. We average 2.3 first quarter points. It's 112th in the country. It's the same story every week. It is, you come out, you dig yourself in a hole, you kind of climb back into it, and it just is completely insurmountable. And the way that we get into these holes are just not understanding alignment, not understanding assignment, penalties, turnovers, losing gap integrity. I don't think that in any of these games, this has been a word that's been thrown around. I'm looking at who we're playing: Old Dominion, Purdue, Rutgers, Marshall. We're not digging ourselves into holes because these other teams come out and they're supremely more talented than we are. Yes, Rutgers has a great front seven on defense and had a good experienced offensive line. Purdue's a Big Ten team, and their defensive line played really well. But we just have to stop doing this. You cannot allow your team that struggles offensively to be playing catch up for the entirety of the second, third, and fourth quarter. And that's just what we have been in basically in every single game that we have lost. So that's what I got.
The refs were egregious on, I'm not going to say both calls, but the phantom unnecessary roughness call on Alan Tisdale.
That was really bad.
At a key moment in the game, and Roddy Jones and the other guy, Phil Pott, on the call, did a good job of just completely crushing the refs and in their awful decision-making on calling a penalty there.
I really like Jones. Jones is good.
I like Jones. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
But the PI, I think the PI could go either way. It happens at such a pivotal moment in the game where it's third and long, and all of a sudden, they're turning that into a 98-yard drive. It's very textbook, just a classic blunder for the Hokies. But I did not think it was PI. I think the ball was too far underthrown. It was uncatchable. The drops are bad.
Yeah.
Daquan Wright and Daquan Felton had some key drops yesterday.
Yeah.
And I know that the Felton drop in the end zone, that ended up turning into, a field goal rather than a touchdown. There's 4 points right there. Maybe you get 3 points back in the first quarter instead of going for it on 4th and 3, which was suspect as well. Not the call to go for it, but the actual one read, throw it deep into triple coverage to our tight end.
That I gotta tell you, and I know it's in our questions later. I do not understand that. Points are coming at a premium. It's 4th and 3. You're running the ball really effectively.
You're up 7-0. You could go up 10-0.
Yeah, I
off a turnover.
I really struggle to understand that. Again, it's not going for it on 4th down. It's going for it on 4th down and throwing it into triple coverage to a tight end. I can't imagine what the success rate on a play like that necessarily is. And again, I don't know if there were other options on that play. I don't know if that was the one read that we're looking for, but I mean, that just can't be the call on 4th down. Anything else before we move into unanswerable questions?
Go for it.
Just questions that I have, and you mentioned it earlier. Why go away from running the football? First drive, you got 3 rushes for 64 yards. You inherit the ball on Marshall's 48. This is the drive that ended in a turnover on downs. And we go pass, run for 2 yards, and then pass. Another question I have is, why are we so vanilla defensively? Go back, watch this game. Go back, watch any of the previous games. It is played so straight up. which is a little confusing to me if it's so straight up how we're not being more gap sound. But anytime we run a game, a stunt, a twist, I'm like surprised when we do it because it's so overwhelmingly rare when that does happen. And being vanilla puts you in positions like this. You had Will Johnson in a mismatch guarding a running back out in a wide receiver slot, gets completely torched. I think it was a 30 or 40-yard gain. And it's not really Will Johnson's fault. You're asking a linebacker to line up, 5 yards off the sideline and play one-on-one on a running back running a go route. It's just not setting yourself up for success. So, those are probably my two biggest questions. I also want to point out something that is just very odd. It's just our mojo, and I'm not talking about Friday Night Lights, like our vibe on the sideline after we score, when we get a big stop, it's I don't see excitement. I don't see elation. I see worry about the impending doom, or I'm having a hard time kind of describing it, but it just looks like our mojo, our sideline body language, just everything around that is just very odd. And I think some of that has to do with we just look confused. And I know I'm rambling here, but it's just an observation that I've had for these last couple of weeks that I don't understand.
I mean, yeah, and to kind of bring that together, this team lacks leaders.
Yeah.
This team lacks leaders.
Yeah.
There's not a Dax Hollifield in the middle that's going to get everyone fired up after a big play.
No.
And that goes to the sideline as well. You don't see it on the sideline. We watched the Purdue team get so fired up for Enter Sandman right in front of us, and you look at the Virginia Tech sideline, and there was no juice. There was nothing going on, and It's consistent. And that is a reflection on leadership on the team personnel, but also within the coaching staff. You need to get these guys fired up, and we don't see it. Another question that I had: how many players on this team have you noticed have improved year over year?
It's not a long list. It's not a long list. And I know we're playing a lot of young guys and asking a lot of young guys. I know we've had injuries, but the defense is probably the thing that confuses me the most. I mean, coming into the season, we all kind of anticipated, look, we can hang our hat on the fact that our defense was underrated coming into the year, and they finished very well in the S&P Plus. We can kind of hang our hat on the fact that, look, we have really, really talented linebackers. We have very, very senior laden defensive line, and we have a very talented defensive backfield. Defensive backfield has had a ton of injuries, but again, the linebacking core is so frustrating to me because of how much talent there is on that unit and kind of the pedigree of not just the pedigree, but the sheer numbers of people who coach that position specifically. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the offensive line, another unit that, we're not expecting a ton from, honestly. We all came into the season and we knew that was going to be a problem. It just hasn't improved at all. It's the same story, if not worse. So
yeah.
Again, I hate doing this. I hate coming on here and sounding negative. And we do our best job not to come on here and be doom and gloom. We love Virginia Tech. We're packing up the car. We're going to the Pittsburgh game next week. We're going to Tallahassee the week after that. We're rooting for this team. We love this team. We ultimately want to see them succeed. But there are real issues and problems and things that don't make a ton of sense that are happening with this team. And we're getting into the meat of our schedule. Out of conference play is over. You're jumping into conference play here. Pittsburgh's a little worse than we anticipated them being. Syracuse is way better. Florida State is an absolute bandwagon. So, lot of concern here for Virginia Tech.
Too short the answer. I think on offense, it's Steven Gosnell year over year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he had any more than 10 catches last year. And then on defense, I mean, you knew he was good last year, but Jalen Stroman is just a really reliable guy.
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
defensive side of the ball. And hey, there's plenty that we have 8 more games to get more samples of, hey, who has improved year over year. But
Right.
I would say at this point in the season, we're 1-3. We just lost to Marshall on the road. We just got crushed by Rutgers on the road. We lost a winnable game against Purdue at home. And that Old Dominion team is bad that we did beat. We are not close to what the expectations were for this football team.
Mm-hmm.
And we would hope, unfortunately, are discouraged with the amount of players that don't seem to have gotten better year over year.
Pat's Blue Ribbon.
I'm actually wearing the shirt today. Pat's Blue Ribbon of the week. I'm not giving it to the fans. I did see some orange and maroon in Huntington. And I know Logan Ross did call us out. Said, Pat, Huntington has plenty of railroads. And someone actually tweeted at us saying how the guy who founded Huntington was like a rail baron. So my bad. I am stripping myself of any blue ribbons. We are playing Pittsburgh next week. When we're there, we are excited to go to Benny's in Lane Stadium and get a slice. And also grab a beer, a Pabst Blue beer. Because PBR is the only, not PBR, Lane Stadium is the only college football stadium in this great country that serves Pabst Blue Ribbon. Pabst Blue Ribbon, Pat's Blue Ribbon of the week. Tucker Holloway is the recipient. Because not only did he have a great punt return that was unfortunately negated from a penalty, that guy got absolutely wailed on 3 separate times on Saturday. Held on to the football and, stayed in the fight. You get your bell rung like that 3 times, Tucker. I don't know how you do it, man. But, we're lucky we have him back there. And he'll get the Pat's Blue Ribbon this week for the grit of getting hit that hard and staying in there.
Look, he plays hard, and I think he's been going through some stuff with injuries, and is just trying to battle through. So, got a lot of respect for Tucker Holloway. Moving into one big thing, I have a couple. I spent a lot of time last week watching the press conference with Coach Huff. And after the game, I went back and I listened to the post game with Coach Huff and the post game with the players. And my big question is I want you to forget about what our identity is this year. Who is Virginia Tech on offense? Who is Virginia Tech on defense? I want to know who we're trying to be long term. And what brought me to that is listening to Coach Huff in the pregame presser. He said, we're not playing Virginia Tech on Saturday. We're not. We're playing to the Marshall standard. And you saw what the Marshall standard was. It was playing good defense, establishing the run, taking care of the football. They lost turnover battle, yes. But you had a very good idea of kind of what the Marshall standard was, and the entire team on Marshall knew what it was, and they said it after the game. When you listen to the post-game press conference for the players, it was a lot of, we knew exactly what Virginia Tech was going to do. I knew what my assignment was. My key was to do X and Y would happen. I ask, where can Virginia Tech get to a point where we overachieve? I don't think we have overachieved much at all in quite some time. That's going across, that's not a this staff issue. That is something that is carried on for quite a few years. And where exactly are we winning in a scheming situation? You look at the games, we beat ODU because we were more talented than ODU. That is why we beat ODU. You look at Purdue, you look at Rutgers, and you look at Marshall, and those are teams that schemed us up really well. They did exactly what they wanted to do for 4 quarters of football, and we need to find out exactly what our identity is. And until we find that out, we're going to continue to look like a disjointed and confused football team. So that's my big question. And then my big observation after yesterday, look, I hated going through the dialogue, the vibes, the conversation that was around our football team towards the end of 2021. It was horrible. It was terrible. And I tweeted out a picture, whatever today, and I said, look, you can't control the outcome, but you can control the vibes. And the vibes after this football game were just terrible. And I go down like the checklist. There's like a checklist of things that when you see these happen, you know something is bad. And on that checklist is we should fire everyone and hire Michael Vick. You know that's one that comes out when stuff's really bad. That's nothing against Michael Vick. It's just, something that's thrown around after a bad football game. Former players infighting amongst one another on the timeline. We saw CJ Carroll got featured on random college football no context, going at it with Emmanuel Belmar and Trayvon McMillan, and it was just bad. And then the cherry on the cake, the whipped cream. It is invariably the players adding Coach Pry, adding Whit Babcock, adding everybody, and being furious about something. This week it was about names in the tunnel. It was just all around bad vibes on the TL.
We're in a bad spot when everyone is at each other's throats about everything. One guy's freaking out because his name's not on the tunnel. The other guy's freaking out because there's no LED lights in the tunnel. And it's like, guys, small potatoes.
Yeah, we have to run the ball.
If we win the football game, guess who isn't complaining about their name not being in the tunnel? If we win the football game, guess who is not complaining about LED lights? But when losing happens, every minuscule thing becomes a mountain.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. In regards to the tunnel situation, there are resources that are available that you could reach out to and say, hey, Devin Wilson, or hey, Sam Stewart, can we make sure that my name is on there? Anything put on Twitter is going to be blown up by this fan base. And all of a sudden, narratives are going to be drawn, and it's just toxic behavior. And because, you put something out there, the fans are going to stoke the fire every single time.
Yeah. I mean, you have to make a decision with this kind of stuff. And I've DM'd, former teammates of mine about this stuff. And usually it's about tickets or other stuff. And you have to make a decision when you're angry about something. Like, should Josh Jackson's name be associated in the locker room as being a captain? Absolutely. No question about it. 110%. I have no idea if it is or isn't. Should Trayvon McMillan be recognized in the tunnel because he lettered at Virginia Tech? Absolutely. No question about it whatsoever. And I know both of them are not looking for a huge meltdown on the timeline, but if you genuinely want to have these things solved, the place to do it is reaching out to somebody who can actually affect it. And I do want to tip my cap to Devin Wilson for putting that message out there. He's been fantastic with every question that I've had regarding anything. He's gotten right back to me. I know that this was a role that Coach Pry was very, very adamant about having. I know Sam Stewart has done a phenomenal job with player engagement. So, you just hate to see all of that stuff because ultimately it's the school, it's the team, and it's the program that we all love. And it's been toxic, and it's been hard to look at. I mean, we need to understand where we are. like where we are as a program is not based upon these four games. Again, a lot of season to go, but based upon what we've seen so far and the numbers that are floating around, we're not just one of the worst teams in the ACC. We are being talked about as one of the worst Power 5 programs in college football. And that kind of transitions into my inconvenient truths. But Pat, I know you had one big thing. I don't want to step on that, but I'll get to that next.
Yeah, and this is not an indictment on our success this year. It's just information that's relevant. We have been crushed by injuries this year, and the compounding injuries have really just tortured any hope for this team. Whether it was, early that we found out this summer, like losing Jesse Hansen. Is Jesse Hansen an impact player on the line? No. Is he another body? Absolutely. Nick Gallo. Where is this team with Nick Gallo? Nick Gallo is one of the best run blockers on this football team. We probably have more than 11 rushing yards against Purdue with Nick Gallo out on the field.
Where is this too? He's a captain on the team. One
Exactly.
of the guys who's been there for a long time. It's a huge loss.
Where is this team with Allie Jennings? I mean, 2 touchdowns in the opener. Could have had 5 touchdowns in the opener. Without a doubt, probably the most talented football player on the Virginia Tech Hokies. Nasir Peoples and Jalen Lane. Every college football team has to deal with injuries. That is not an excuse for this staff. Injuries are a part of the game. Every team deals with them. It definitely has impacted some of the mojo on this football team as well. But hey, you have to build a roster that has depth. That's the reason the transfer portal exists right now. You need to take advantage of that. You need to get your guys in and make sure that they're ready to go. But it has not helped this football team in any way, shape, or form with so many guys banged up.
Inconvenient truths. And talking, we're not just one of the worst football teams in the ACC. We're being talked about as one of the worst programs in the Power 5. And, here are just a couple of numbers reflective of that. Since Coach Fuente's departure, Virginia Tech is 5-13 overall. We have 2 wins over Power 5. This is a tough stat. 2 wins over Power 5 opponents in 13 tries. We have played Power 5 opponents 13 times. We have beaten them twice. We are 3-2 against Group of 5 teams. That includes a win over Wofford, a win over Liberty, and a win over Old Dominion this year, and then a loss to Old Dominion last year, and a loss to Marshall this year. Another tough stat. We have scored over 28 points 2 times in the last 15 games. Let me repeat that. We have scored 4 touchdowns worth of points twice in the last 15 games. We scored 29 points against Pittsburgh, which included a block punt for a touchdown. We scored 29 points. And we scored 36 points against Old Dominion, and Old Dominion is horrible, is a horrible football team. Stat leaders over that time period, we have passed for over 250 yards twice. Grant Wells went for 314 against Wofford in 2022 and 251 against Old Dominion this year. And we have had one 100-yard rusher in that time as well. And that is Keyshawn King, who had 111 yards against Old Dominion. We almost had 2 with Jalen Holston. He had 99 yards against Liberty in 2022. It has, just baffling numbers. So, yeah.
Bad. Tough.
Bad. Really bad.
We are starting to see the consequences of what happens when you have new faces in the building that aren't just new to Virginia Tech. They are new to this type of role and this type of position. Having a first-time head coach, hiring a first-time offensive coordinator, hiring a first-time defensive coordinator, all 3 of them together at once. There's no experience there. And, not only are you hiring them as a first-time guy, they're getting paid a ton of money. Corn had 1 year of FBS experience as a co-offensive coordinator. He was getting paid less than $500,000. Bowen, nothing. J. Ham for DC, no FBS experience. Chris Marv, no FBS experience as a DC. So our last 4 coordinator hires have all been guys who have combined 1 year of FBS experience as a co-offensive coordinator. So Billy just read all those numbers over the past 2 seasons. We know how awful some of those years at the end of the Fuente era were. We're noticing a pattern. We need to hire experienced people. We need to have. I mean, that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. You reap what you sow. We have coaches who don't have experience, and we are going through all the growing pains of what that looks like. And we have 8 games left, and we could go 2-10. We could go 3-9. We could go 1-11. I think all 3 of those are, possibilities right now. You don't go to Marshall and lose by a score. You don't go to Rutgers and lose by 19 points and expect to compete in the ACC and win a few conference games, unless there are some major changes that happen between now and the start of ACC play, which is in 5 days. Any comments?
No. You said we lack experience in the coaching staff. We lack winning experience from the players, obviously. And it's a bad product right now, top to bottom.
There are guys that are hurt. There are young guys on the team. There are still guys from the Fuente team. There are still guys on the team that are not football players at the level that Coach Pry and his staff want on this roster, frankly. Need more time in the portal. I mean, you should be looking at the portal the moment it opens and get as much volume from there as possible that are Power 5 football players. But yeah, I mean, we're going to learn a lot more over the next 8 weeks. We're going to watch, and we're going to stay level here, but we're not in a great situation, as you guys know. Letters from the lunch pail.
There were a lot. First comes from PGH lawyer Jay. How hard is Marv's seat right now? ODU had 201 rushing yards against us and 15 against Texas A&M Commerce yesterday. Look, I am never going to get on here and call for another man to lose his job. I think Coach Marv, I've said it before, I think we lack experience across the coaching staff. That's been beaten to death at this point. I do think that he has a very bright future in coaching. I truly believe that. With that said, it's the whole product. It's offense, it's defense, it's special teams, it's talent level. It's a combination of everything. And defense had a great when the defense has a great quarter, the offense can't move the ball. When the offense gets it going, the defense gets gashed. So, we said this the last 2 podcasts in a row. Every single game, you're saying, okay, who needs to get fired? Okay, who needs to stop playing? Okay, who can we blame this loss on? At the end of the day, the loss to Marshall is not on Coach Marv. The loss to Purdue is not on Coach Bowen. The loss to whoever is not on one person. It's on the Virginia Tech Hokies. It's on the entire staff and the entire group of players. I do know, again, this is not something I'm calling for. It's just reality. If Virginia Tech finishes the season with 3 wins or 4 wins, they're not going to be okay with bringing back the same coach, the same coordinators, and the same staff. It's just that's unrealistic. So, everybody's kind of got their back up against the wall, and I'm interested to see how the team responds, how the staff responds, how the fan base responds. I mean, look, we have Pittsburgh coming to town at 8:00. It's not being hid on, the Cartoon Network or whatever, the CRN, PRN, whatever other channel there is for the ACC. It is going to be on primetime television at 8:00, and Pittsburgh's coming to town with Pat Narduzzi coming off of a loss last week. So it is a huge spot for not just perception, but the future of this team this year. this upcoming Saturday night. So I know that I didn't really answer your question. To answer your question, how hot is Coach Marv's seat right now? I think there is a ton of pressure on the entire staff, top to bottom, and rightfully so from the results that we've seen thus far. Next question from Steve Bryce. Steve Bryce, appreciate you writing in every single week. I know we've had our back and forth, but I do appreciate the engagement. With the season hopes fading, question number 1, how does Virginia Tech get enough NIL money together by December to be a real player in the transfer portal? Even mid-tier O-line and D-line will be expensive this offseason. That is the biggest thing that is difficult to get out of the portal. You look at how much of the roster Deion Sanders turned over at Colorado, and he still didn't get the offensive and defensive line right. That's why they got blown out by Oregon, because they are just really, really struggling up front. I am willing to say that Virginia Tech, from the experience that I've had outside of Virginia Tech, our efforts on the NIL front, as it pertains to Triumph, as it pertains to the Hokie way, as it pertains to what we've been able to accomplish, have been near the front of what I'm seeing in other schools. We do a really good job. At the end of the day, you can get as many talented guys in there as you want. You need to have a system and development that makes it work out, or you end up like Texas A&M. It is not just about getting guys into the building. It is about getting guys into the building that understand your scheme, feel comfortable executing your scheme, and can make an impact. So that's what we need to do. Question number 2, do you replace 1 or 2 current coaches this offseason? I have no idea. I have to see the season play out, and I have to see how it goes. I'll just refer to my previous answer, where if this season finishes with 3 or 4 wins, not me, but the entire fan base and any fan base in the country would be expecting some sort of change. And the last question, who wins next first, Virginia Tech or UVA? If Virginia Tech doesn't win this weekend against Pittsburgh, they're not going to win for 2 or 3 more weeks.
UVA has Boston College and William and Mary. So
those are the 2 most winnable games on the rest of their schedule.
So it's going to be UVA, I think. I mean, yeah.
There's the answer to your question. If UVA doesn't win, I don't know, actually, because with the quarterback switch, I think that quarterback's a good player. I think he's got a really bright future. I don't know if he'll finish his career at UVA, and he's got to get a helmet that fits his head, but kid's a good player.
Yeah, he is.
You gotta
look, dude. You gotta look. I'm doing the.
Oh, you're doing the.
I should have taken my hat off for it. Natty D Light just wrote in and said, just a thought, there seems to be a stunning lack of self-awareness of how dysfunctional this team is by players and staff. It almost feels like the messaging is that they are a great team catching tough breaks and not a totally uncoordinated mess on the field.
I agree with you, Natty D Light.
Yeah, this is kind of like our body language topic we were covering earlier too.
I agree.
It's just, it's like, all right, there are some talented guys, there's some experienced guys, but I don't know if the experienced guys have that much talent, and I don't know if the talented guys have that much experience, and that's dysfunction because there's no leader. Again, dysfunction equals a lack of leadership. And like after I think it might have been the Bob Schick play or something else where something negative happened and Coach Pry's writing on the notepad again. And, can someone ask him about the notepad? Has someone asked him about the notepad? I know
I want to see
a big deal about it, but what is it?
I want to see. I would assume that he's writing down things that he needs to. I think he's referenced it post game on just corrections and things that he wants to go over after the game with the team. Good things or bad things. I just want to see some juice, man. Like I want to see.
Show me the guy who's in front of the room, commanding the room, getting every single guy and gal who's watching the press conference. I love this guy. He's so fun. Or, at the Monogram Club stuff where he's on the mic. Anytime he's ever on the mic, it's great. Yeah. And you're fired up. And he's yelling. Mm-hmm. And he's smiling.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see that on the sidelines. At least
Yeah.
what the TV shows, we don't see that.
Yeah.
And maybe that only happens when we're winning football games and we haven't seen much of that. So
I'm looking for more juice, top to bottom. I think you nailed that. I think there is a stark difference between the team and the staff that we see on videos and practice and podium than what we see on the field. And again, that can be contributed to the fact that this team, quite frankly, doesn't know how to win. Literally, this team does not. We just went over their record over the past 2 or 3 years. It's brutal. And I feel for those kids because they play hard every single week. I say it every week, there's no quit in this team, but they're not able to get over the hump. They're not able to get over the hill. And another unanswerable question I have is how many more times can they do that? How many more times can you roll the football out there, get yourself in a hole and battle back? And, the levee just doesn't break and it's out of control. I completely agree with you. It does just look uncoordinated. Andrew Wilson. Does the "this is home" and family atmosphere contribute to the lack of competitiveness in our program? Are players or staff too comfortable? Staff, if not by now, when should fans expect to see progress? Hanging up, I'll listen to the answer. Andrew, I deeply appreciate the question. I really do. I love engagement, love the question. I think back to the University of Hawaii. I think it was in 2008, and they're just beating up on everybody. And the name of their team is literally the Rainbow Warriors. So I don't think that the "this is home" or family atmosphere affects our ability to be a tough team. I certainly love the "this is home" reference. I think it's true. This just needs to be the home of winning. So maybe we say "this is home of wins." So I don't think that is it. When should fans expect to see some progress? I'm hoping next week. I got to tell you, I have no other answer than that. I have to see something different than the same movie that we put on with different actors on the other team.
Can we play a team that stubs its toe too? Like,
that'd be nice.
Can we? I know like UVA does this every year when they play us, but other than that last Saturday in November, I would love to see just something silly happen where it turns into 6 points from our team.
Well, they did snap the ball. They did snap the ball over the long snapper's head in the first quarter of the Old Dominion game. But yeah, we've played a bunch of teams that are really. I think every team that we've played is well coached, and they've outcoached us, and we've lost all of those games. So yeah, I'm hoping to see progress next week. Pete McGee, what a loaded question. What is the one position group that, if improved, makes the biggest difference? Is it realistic to expect that group to make an improvement before the end of the year or start of 2024? I'm going to combine two units, and it's the big guys. It's the defensive line and it's the offensive line. I am more confident that the defensive line will get better for the end of the season because, quite frankly, they don't really have much of an option. And there's a lot more seniority over there. I think when we were talking about leaders, Josh Fuga seems to be the most vocal person on the entire team. I think the Feldarius Payne change makes a big difference. I think, if he continues to get better and continues to make plays, he'll be an impact player for us. And I think it, quite frankly, has the most talent out of those two units.
They come at a premium. They come at a premium in the portal.
They certainly do. I could give you several different answers for this one. I think the tight end unit has had problems this year. I think that we talked about the linebacker unit already. We've talked about the wide receiver unit, who I know, again, is really, really thin. I get it. But there have been so many drops, and you just can't have that with a quarterback who I don't want to – you know what? I'm done with the narrative that Kyron Drones struggles to throw the ball because, it's not Quincy Patterson out there. It's not. And that's not a dig on Quincy Patterson. Quincy Patterson's a good player. But Kyron Drones has the ability to throw the football. So I don't want to put that label on him anymore. I think it's unfair. But when we as an offense struggle to protect the quarterback and get the ball to receivers, if it's hitting you in the chest and hitting you in the hands, you got to catch the ball. Period. End of story.
SGA season. I have alumni friends now refusing to watch the games, and all of them are selling their tickets. They say waste of time, energy, money when we know the unwatchable product end result. Yeah, I don't know what I can sell here.
I am
nothing I say right now is going to be anything different than what I've said before on why I like going to football games at Tech, but they sell beer in the stadium, you know. They sell PBR in the stadium and Benny's in the stadium. So
I'll tell you what's definitely not going to help this team is being dejected. And I'm not even calling people out because I completely understand having this mindset. I completely understand having this mindset with the results that we've seen. I'm really interested to see what Lane Stadium looks like and sounds like this upcoming Saturday. It's been a sellout for weeks. We're both going to be there. And it's a big moment for Virginia Tech. I don't have anything else. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that I had friends that felt the exact same way and are doing the exact same things. And I don't have anything to tell them. I don't. But I know that I'm going to keep showing up. So, and that's not even me holding that over your head. It's just a decision that I've decided to make with my time. So, I mean, for better or for worse, that's what I'm going to do. Pat, any closing thoughts? I'll just say, look, this sucks. Like nobody likes doing this. I love that folks tune in and listen to what we have to say about Virginia Tech. I love hearing, I love that our fan base cares so much and is so passionate about our team, about our program, about our kids, and about the place that we all love, the place that is home. But it is, it's tough sledding, man. It is tough sledding. I guess I'll recycle a quote that I used last 2 years ago is, look, hate the result. Don't hate the person. That's the one thing that I can't stand when we go through stuff like this is taking results of games and making personal attacks on people, whether it be players, staff, personnel, administration, anything like that. But look, people are angry. People care a lot. And I'm glad that I'll take a fan base that cares a lot over a fan base that doesn't give a damn and won't show up and won't, we'll just accept mediocrity or below mediocrity or horribleness. So I don't know if I said anything of any substance there, but that's kind of all I can think about.
Yeah. It's a night game. Homecoming.
Wear white.
The following. Wear white. Big white effect guy. Homecoming is the following.
Are we going to be wearing the same polo again, me and you? Is it going to be the second? Is it going to be the Pat and Billy Ray effect and the rowback polos?
I don't know. We might need to change that up. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm wearing. I'm wearing that. So if you want to wear it, we can match. If not, that's what I'm wearing.
How good is Syracuse? How good is Wake Forest?
I'll tell you what, Virginia Tech is undefeated in the ACC right now.
Louisville is 4-0.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, shut up. Yeah, zip it. We bought our basketball tickets for the women's. That's going to be awesome. I'm fired up for some round ball. I'll tell you that much. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have some special stuff coming with basketball. We'll say that.
I mean, to answer your question, how good is Syracuse? They're 4-0. How good is Wake Forest? They're 3-1. I mean, talk about how lucky Virginia Tech got not having to play Duke, North Carolina, Miami. The answer is really lucky. But we do play the two best teams, quote unquote, in the ACC because of their ACC records. But look, Louisville puts up a ton of points They have a great offense. Florida State is Florida State. NC State, up and down. Brennan Armstrong, I've been kind of surprised with how much he's struggled this year, given that he has his old offensive coordinator. I mean, I guess we can do this. Like, it was kind of, things that I enjoyed. This was kind of the first week that I got to really enjoy watching college football as a whole. This past weekend, had the opportunity to sit down and watch a lot of good football games. A couple of observations. I talked a little bit about overachieving. You saw Arizona State overachieve against USC. They scored 28 points, lost 28-42. Florida State beat Clemson at Clemson for the first time in a very long time. Rutgers was hanging with Michigan for a while, which was a little surprising.
All right, were they?
Yeah, they were. I mean, it was 7-0 like until halftime. They definitely played.
No, it wasn't.
We all chalked up Rutgers to get absolutely smashed by Michigan. I thought they played better than expected. Oregon, Colorado. I'll leave you with this. Oregon, because you're not here to talk about other teams, but I'll leave you with this. Oregon, Colorado. I hated the way that the media handled that. It seemed like every question that they asked Dan Lanning leading up to the game was to get him to say something to Deion Sanders. It seemed like after the game, every single conversation was centered around, these two coaches hate each other. Here's what so-and-so said. Here's what so-and-so said. Both coaches' jobs are to motivate their specific teams. Both coaches' jobs are to coach their specific teams. I think both of them, given their situations and given what they've walked into, have done a phenomenal job. And at the end of the day, Colorado is a team who was picked to win 3 games this year. They're overachieving. And Oregon is a team who has one of the best quarterbacks in college football and is a college football playoff hopeful and probably one of the better teams in the country. They went in and they handled business against Colorado. I don't think it's an indictment on either coach. So that was one thing that pissed me off this weekend.
Penn State crushed Iowa.
They did.
Crushed them.
They did.
Was it like 37-0 or something?
It was Iowa scored 0 points. I know that. It was like, yeah.
Tough scene. Who looks really good is Washington.
I have another who looks really good. Dude, I am all in on Duke. Duke is legit. Like, Duke is the real deal, man. I mean, to go in and handle business against UConn, they won 41-7. They have college game day coming into town next week, which is cool. I mean, look, those are the things that you root for in college football. That's what makes college football great. So I think they play Notre Dame next week at home. So they have
Notre Dame at home. Talk about a heartbreaker. Brian was at that game, and he said it was the most, I think, dejected he's ever felt after a sporting event. I mean, how could you not, right?
No, that is, every time Virginia Tech loses a game in heartbreaking fashion, you think you're the only team that has that. Well, if you had Notre Dame +3, that was pretty devastating way to lose out on that, and can't imagine being a full-time Notre Dame fan.
I mean, I would much rather have had that than had it +2.5, though.
That's true.
I was happy to push.
One last thing I want to say, kind of an unrealized storyline is it's been floated around that Pat Narduzzi is very much in the running for the Michigan State job after the absolute disaster firestorm that is going on for Michigan State and East Lansing. So that's just something to keep your eye on. I think that would be a phenomenal hire for Michigan State. I have said it before. A lot of people don't like Pat Narduzzi. You don't like him because he's not on your team is why you don't like Pat Narduzzi. That's just the fact. That's just what it is. And that's okay. But I think he would be an excellent fit in East Lansing. And I would like to get him out of the ACC because, quite frankly, he's a great ball coach and it has been at the helm for some of my least favorite Hokie result games of recent memory.
Sharky shout-outs. Kickoff on College Avenue taking place on Friday in downtown Blacksburg. This Friday, before the Pittsburgh game, September 29th, from 5 to 9 p.m. College Avenue. Hokie students, families, alumni, and fans are invited to see special guests, inflatables, live music, and performances, and lawn games, and more. That's from the downtown, the Blacksburg partnership. So head on down there if you're going to be in town.
I want to shout out Oscar Bradburn and Jenna Porth, who got engaged today. Shot Oscar a FaceTime he was enjoying. He called it the Napa Valley of Australia. He's out in the Napa Valley of Australia. Looked sick. I mean, we're talking like fog rolling in, rose petals on the ground. Honestly, quite surprised that he picked up the phone because I certainly would not. But really, really happy for both of them. Great people and sons of holy matrimony, sons of she said yes. Super happy for both of you. Make sure your wedding is not scheduled between the months of August and November, and you will get all of the support from us. That does it. 10:36 Eastern time on Sunday, September 24th. Is there any football left? Yeah, we got about a quarter left of Pittsburgh and Las Vegas. Man, that was tough. I really, really don't want to get on here and do this again next week. I would really love a Virginia Tech win at home at night. ESPN's running an ad for us for the Terror Dome.
Yeah, that's an AT&T ad.
Yeah. So if we could take a page out of AT&T's book and raise the bar, this is a great weekend to do so. I will leave you with that. Pat Finn, Billy Ray Mitchell, Sons of Saturday. Check us out on YouTube, on sonsofsaturday.com, Sons of Sat on Twitter and Instagram. Great stuff coming out all week. We had the Justin Cates Cheers and Jeers, Mike Holmes with his write-up, and everybody else holding it down. We got Prokies from Nels coming on later this week. Shout out to Sam Jesse for coordinating all of that. And then Monday football will probably have already happened when you've listened to this, but make sure you don't miss it anymore, where Pete B jumps on Monday morning to talk college ball. And as always, go Hokies, go sports, go friendship.
Enjoy the games.
Enjoy the games. And we'll see you guys in Blacksburg on Saturday.